morning, viewers, and welcome to this session. I want us to have a look at the individual gaseous exchange system for various organisms. Now, today I want us to pick on the mammals and then look at how their gaseous exchange system is and what it is all about. Now, in this case, we know examples of the mammals like the human being, the horse, the cow, the goats. That is what we are referring to. So our main reference point here will be talking about human being. But I want us to note that organisms will always get the gases from their surrounding where they live in. Like we get our oxygen from the air. We have got other animals getting their oxygen in water. We have got organisms that will be getting their materials that they need in their surrounding. Now, one thing that we have to look at here that might be a challenge to us a little bit is that when we are talking about the oxygen being taken in, we need it. And then organisms also need some molecules like water. We need them in us. But I want us to note that, or to realize that, when we are taking in oxygen, we need it quickly, we need it in greater volume. But there is some challenge that is coming to the organisms here. Like, for example, those particular things that help, the factor that help the oxygen to come in quickly and in large volume, they are making the organism to lose water, for example. So we look at that. We talk about factor. There is a conflict here. Conflict between the factor that is the conflict is factors facilitating oxygen intake normally increases water loss. I know you may be wondering, what are we really talking about? We have to know that organisms need water. That is very much important. And we also have to know that organism needs oxygen. Like in our lungs, there is water that make the oxygen to be taken in solution form. But for us to really understand how this conflict is all about, let us look at it in terms of plants so that we get the example very, very clearly coming out. So we said that the gas exchange surface for the plant is leaves. That is what we talked about, the leaves here. So oxygen will be getting in the plants through the leaves. We know that the leaves, they have openings like stomata. This is very important, the stomata. This is key. So if I say that there is a conflict in here, that the factors that are facilitating oxygen intake, they are normally increasing water loss. Like in the case of, we can look at it in terms of plant here. So what are the factors that are going to facilitate oxygen intake in plants? So one of the things that we have realized that for the oxygen to come in here, we can talk about temperature being a factor here. That is, we can increase in temperature. So increase in temperature will basically increase oxygen intake. Actually, it's increasing the rate of respiration here. So that's the thing here. So when oxygen is, temperature is high, more oxygen in. So increase in this will means more oxygen can be taken in. Now, how is this going to help or to facilitate the water loss? By the time the temperature is high here, I want you to note that the leaves here, they have got their water. So their water here will be vaporizing quickly. So high temperature, we know, high temperature, that is the same temperature here, will increases vapor formation. So more vapor is formed. Since the oxygen or the gas that is being taken in here by this plant is passing through the stomata, so the stomata must be open. And they have got more energy now, they are moving in quickly. Now the water that is found on the leaves at about that time, what's happening to them? They are forming vapor, like you've noted here, when the temperature goes high. So what will be the next thing? They are going to escape. And therefore you can see that there is a conflict here that has been created. So each organism must make sure that they have to come up with adaptive features to overcome this particular conflict. So we're going to see how this one is going to be illustrated. That is the thing that I want us to know, that in any time there is that particular exchange here, there is this problem that can arise, and then this problem here, a solution must be found for it by the organism that is going to be there. So they have to be evolved in a manner that they can solve that problem. Like the lungs, how is our lungs evolved so that we can see this problem being solved here? So I want us to look at the effectiveness, the effective gaseous exchange system. How do they work, or how do they facilitate these processes that we are talking about? So let us have a look at the effective gas exchange. Effective gas exchange. The effective gas exchange system. So the effective gas exchange system, like in the human being, must have certain features in them. So what are the features that are there in the effective gas exchange system? Number one feature is that there must be a large surface. It must have a large surface area. That is the key feature that is found in effective gas exchange system. There must be a large surface area. Now this one here is to make sure that there is an efficient gas exchange to supply the need of organism. So the large surface area is to make sure that there is efficient, so you can say for efficient uptake of gas or of oxygen to supply the demand or the body need. That is one thing that is very, very much clear. So I can tell you that our bodies are just as such that we have got a very large surface area for gaseous exchange. This is going to supply our need for cellular respiration, that all the cells that we have must be receiving this particular oxygen so that we can really compensate for this. So that is one thing that is very much important for us. Then the surface area, the membrane must be having a thin layer. You can talk about thin layer of surface membrane. Surface membrane. How is this one being effective for the gas exchange system? Now, if any case the membrane is very thin, or it is a thin layer, it is going to have for us a shorter distance. So it is minimizing the diffusion distance. Therefore, the gases will be taking place. The diffusion will be taking place quickly. So you can talk about it minimizes the distance. Minimizes the distance of diffusion. This is the concept that I want you to understand, that the distance becoming small or shorter distance. That's the key thing. And therefore, this one will be making sure that there is that quick for faster rate, for faster rate of diffusion. This is very much important for us to know, that the moment the distance is short enough, there will be very quick rate of diffusion of the molecules. That is important for us to know. Then in mammals here, the surface area, the fastest surface area for gas exchange is having high supply of blood vessel. So you can talk about high supply of blood vessels. Like in this case, we are talking about the capillaries. So all the membrane is supplied with a lot of blood vessels. Now the reason for this is to make sure that there is a lot of blood coming to this parallel surface here. What is the role of blood? The blood will be doing the work of transport, and therefore it is going to bring in the element of mopping up the membrane that I was talking about, to always make sure that there is a concentration gradient. Like for example, if this is the oxygen coming in and then this is the membrane where it is, so there is a lot of blood vessel here. So when that oxygen immediately diffuses here, it is being mopped away. Okay, it is mopped away, so that there is always continuous flow of oxygen in, due to existence of steep diffusion gradient. So this one here will be creating that. So any surface area or any membrane whereby there is gaseous exchange taking place, there will be always that continuous flow of molecules. There's that particular steep movement of the molecule. So there is that creation of the concentration gradient. So that is a very, very much important part for us to note. Then another feature of effective gaseous exchange surface is they are moistened. So they have got some moisture in it. Now, how is this very much important for us? So the membrane is moistened so that there is that particular taking up of the gases in solution form. The gases can easily dissolve, and therefore it creates the consistency of the flow of the molecules, so they can come in solution form. That's why you look at the lungs of human being. The lungs has got some water in it. It is moistened. We look at the gills of the fish. It is moistened. Actually, it is in the fish is in water. So these particular membrane are always moistened to make sure that the gases are taken in their solution form so that they can quickly diffuse on the membrane. Then the lastly here is that the membrane is permeable. Permeable surfaces. Permeable surface. Now this is a very key factor here. If any case the membrane is not permeable, it means that there is no getting in. There is no that particular get pass. So they cannot move in. So the moment the membrane is permeable, this is going to be for very effective movement of particles. They can easily pass, and then they can be exchanged into the surface. So these are the things that are making sure that the gas exchange system are very effective in whatever work they are supposed to do in terms of the transport of the gases and the exchange of the gas. So this is how it happens. So I want us to quickly look at how do we have it in the human being, the gas exchange in human being. How do the system look like? So maybe we can look at the gas exchange of human so that it can tell us what we. So this is the human gaseous exchange system that I want us to have a look at and know. But first of all, I want you to know that the human gaseous exchange system is based on the chest cavity, which is actually specialized to make sure that there is that exchange between the internal body part, that is the lungs, and the external environment. So in the external part, it is linked through the nose and the mouth. So we have got the nostrils that normally bring in the gas in. At the same time, the gas can come in through the mouth and then reconnect at the larynx. So how does that one happen? It is always advisable that we breathe through the nose, because in the nostrils we have got the cells that are specialized for secreting the mucus, like the goblet cells, and also they have got the cilia. Now all this is to make sure that they can clean up the air and also moisten it before it goes to the lungs. Remember, in the first introduction part, we talk about the gas being taken in solution. So it's good for the gas to be moistened. So this one happened through the mucus that is being produced through the nose and also in the trachea. So it is good for us to breathe through the nose. So that one prepares the gas for being exchanged in the lungs. So the main parts of the gas exchange system are these parts that we want to look at here, and I'm sure most of them you have seen in the lower level of learning. So we have got this particular part here, the gullet. So this is where there is that division. When the gas comes in, this part is part of the digestive system. So I was indicating it here so that you really see that there is that particular digestive system that's separated from the breathing system. So this one is the esophagus. So that is the thing. So whenever we are breathing in, the gas will be following this other part here. So in this part we have got what's called the larynx, what we sometimes call the voice box. So whenever there is movement of hair here, it can create the sounds here that we normally have when we are talking. So that's why it's called the voice box. Then we have got the trachea. Trachea is a tube, a large tube that is running down towards the lungs region. Now when the trachea reaches here, it is branched into what's called the bronchus. So this is the left bronchus, this is the right bronchus. So the two of them make the bronchi. Now along the trachea here, I have said there that we have got cells that produce the mucus. So we have got the goblet cells, and we also have got the cilia. Those ones are still preparing the gas as it moves down the lungs. The next thing is that there are those particular ring of cartilage. That is the incomplete rings here. The cartilage, they are incomplete, so that they form a shape of a semicircle, the C shape. Now the role of this is to make sure that this particle, they add strength here so that this part doesn't collapse, and then it keeps it open all the time so that the gas can keep on breathing, coming in. So we can breathe whenever we are asleep, we can breathe whenever we are awake. All the time the trachea is open so that the gas can keep on moving in. So these rings are continuous up to the bronchus. Now in the bronchus here, it can be branched when it has reached the lungs here, so that we have got small bronchioles. Along the bronchioles there, the gas exchange can start taking place. But besides, they also have got an end, what is called the alveolus. When there are many, they are alveoli. So these particular are the sacs where the actual gas exchange is taking place. Now in individual, there are very many. There are very, very many, like around 480 to 500 millions. That is how many they are in an average adult human being. So you can see that that one means that we can really breathe a very big volume of the gas at the same time. So if any case we have got respiratory problem and then they are blocked, we can reduce the volume of the gas that we are talking about that is going to be exchanged. And whenever that part is reduced, that means that the respiration, cellular respiration, will be reduced because the oxygen will not be reaching those particular cells very quick enough, and that is what's going to bring the problem. So when we have got the respiratory infection, it is limiting the exchange of oxygen, and therefore the cells are not getting oxygen for energy production. And the moment that energy production goes down, the body will become weak, and that can eventually lead to death when some very vital organs are not getting the exact energy that they should get to operate. So that is why our track system here is really, really very important for us. Now we also have got some parts here, like the fibrous part here. This is the diaphragm itself. In the lower level, we are just calling the diaphragm, but I want to tell you that is a sheet of muscles here that is spreading here. They help in the breathing system. Now this other part here, look at this particular line. There are two lines here. So the inner line is actually the lungs. The inner line is forming for us the lungs. But the lungs is not just exposed to this cavity. It is having a cover, like a seal. Now that seal is what we are referring to as pleural membrane. Why should it have a seal? This particular lungs is not static. It keeps on contracting and relaxing because of muscles. If any case it does that, it can come into contact with the ribs. Like you can see here, it may come back into contact with the ribs. If that one happens, it may stick. So this particular cover here is to protect it, and at the same time is to make sure that it is not exposed to the ribs, so that it sticks. Like for example, if you I know at sometimes you might have been in the kitchen and see meat being prepared. When you cut fresh meat and then you get hold of it into your hand, you will realize that it sticks a little because of the fluid that it has. Now this one here is not going to stick because of the membrane here. At the same time, the membrane here is leaving a cavity here, what we are calling the pleural cavity. And then the pleural cavity is not just a vacuum. It is not just empty like that. It is filled with a fluid that's called pleural fluid. Now this fluid is to make sure that this part is actually lubricated, and it is one thing that will be making sure that whenever there is that expansion of the lungs, it is when the lungs come into contact with the walls of the ribs, it doesn't stick there. It can easily move. So that one brings in the effective gaseous exchange that we are looking here. So these are the parts. Now at this end here, I want you to look at this other ends here. We have got what's called the ribs, and you can see these white ones here are my ribs. These ones here are my ribs. So ribs are like the bones here. They does the role of protection. So they protect this inner part here. But along the ribs, there are muscles. And we have got two groups of muscles. So these are the muscles here. The one that is running from the outer part is called external intercostal muscles. The one that is running in the inner part, like I'm indicating them here, is called internal intercostal muscles. So these are the muscles that are really helping us in the gaseous exchange. Like we are going to see how their movement can help in exchanging gases between the chest cavity and the external environment. So this is how the human breathing system looks like, and this is what it is made up of. So I hope that one is very clear of various parts and what every part should be doing for us. So I want us to look at how can we carry out gaseous exchange. So I want us to have a look at how gaseous exchange can now take place actually in the alveoli. Now we know that at this particular point here we are going to rely mostly on diffusion because of the concentration gradient that we are able to see. So whenever we are when we are breathing in, we have looked at how the features that are found in the chest cavity help us to bring in the air. Like when we are breathing in, we normally see the case of the muscles, the intercostal muscles contracting, and then that one means that they were pulling the ribs upward, and then the diaphragm were also contracting muscles, so that we have got the chest cavity having a greater volume. The moment the volume was so big, the pressure inside it is lower than the atmospheric pressure, so the gas will rush in. So that is an active process. Now when we come here, there is that passive process here. So when the gas will be getting into the alveoli or air sacs, once it has been contained here, the concentration of the air will go up as compared to the blood capillaries. So these are the blood capillaries that are bringing in the blood. Now, this blood that is coming in here in the capillary, it has been moving from body parts, meaning that the oxygen that it was carrying was already, it gave up all oxygen that it was having in the tissues that needed them. So it is coming up here with the blood that is having low oxygen concentration. So when it reaches here, it finds that in the alveolus there is high oxygen concentration. So the gas can just diffuse here by simple diffusion. It can go into this particular blood, and then it goes out with it, so that it can go back to the heart to be pumped to every part of the body, so that it can supply the oxygen. Now I want you to note that how does the alveoli look like? Now alveoli here, these are the air sacs. First of all, you can see that the alveoli here has got some folding. So this folding is to make sure that we are achieving the large surface area, which is one of the efficient features of the gas exchange surfaces. So this is to make sure that the surfaces are large enough so that we can get in the gases. That is one thing that it should be there for us. Then number two, the wall is 1 cell thick. The wall of the alveoli is 1 cell thick, what we are referring to as epithelial cell thick. And I want you to note that I have not said that the cell wall is 1 thick. This is an animal. There is no cell wall. I have just said that the wall is 1 cell thick. That is should be very much clear in terms of our exam language, so that we don't mess up. So that thinness is to make sure that it is still going to those adaptive features that make sure that there is efficient gaseous exchange. So the thinness there is to enable it to have a shorter distance to be covered by this gas that is diffusing across, like we can see. Likewise, if we go to the capillary, the blood capillary that is next to the cell, to the alveolar here, is also having a very thin endothelial wall, which is thin enough to make sure that the gas will diffuse quickly. So there are two membranes here. The membrane of the alveolar, which I have said is it is 1 cell thin. That is like epithelial cell. That is within the membrane here. Then the one in the one inside, that is the capillary wall. We are calling it the endothelial wall. It is also a cell thin. So those two features make sure that there is that efficient gaseous exchange because the distance is reduced. Now, what can stimulate the movement here of the gases here? Now, one thing that I want us to note with this membrane is that this membrane in between the alveoli here, between the alveoli here, there are tissues that connect them up like muscles, so that they can also squeeze in so that the gas can move. So when the gas is being squeezed in so that we are moving here, that one we are calling it elastic recoil of the lungs. So the lung can coil so that it can squeeze here. So it is like elastic nature, which is made possible by the muscles that are existing between the alveoli. Then number two, these particular walls, if any case they are not strong enough, they can collapse, just like we saw in the trachea. So trachea was having a cartilage so that they remain open all the time. How about the lungs? Can the lungs collapse? Yes, they may collapse. So to prevent this, they are in between here. They are always, there's a liquid here, the phospholipid layer here, which is of a liquid. Now this one here will prevent it from collapsing. We can also call it the lung surfactant, and that one will prevent the collapsing of the wall here. So it's very much important for us to know that those features here will be helping us to make sure that our lungs is in correct shape to continuously work for us. So this is how it happens. Now I have indicated for you the two membranes here so that we see how the two gases are now coming in. By the time the blood is flowing in, like you are seeing it in here, there was little oxygen in it because the blood gave up the oxygen that it was having in the tissues. Now I want you to know that as it was giving up its oxygen, the tissues, when respiration, cellular respiration takes place, one of the gases, one of the things that is being produced as a byproduct is carbon dioxide. So as it was giving up its oxygen, it was gaining new gas, which is carbon dioxide. So this gas here is a waste. So it has to come back with this so that it is also eliminated. So as it is coming here, you can now see that in the alveoli here, the air has got more oxygen but less carbon dioxide. So that one will be creating a concentration gradient of the two gases. So the carbon dioxide here is less concentrated here than it is in the blood here, because the blood has a lot of it here. So it will be diffusing here. Oxygen is high in the alveolus than it is in the capillary blood. So it will be diffusing it. So there will be that particular exchange of the materials. And as this blood keep on moving, you can see that the steeper gradient will be created. Because that oxygen that has been fed up here, it can raise the concentration and therefore reducing the gradient. So what happened? It flows out. It is like being mopped away so that the gradient exists most of all the time. Now the carbon dioxide that comes in here, we are going to breathe it out immediately, so that there is that particular gradient maintained, so that we can continuously breathe in and breathe out. So this is how the gaseous exchange is taking place. And I want you to understand that it is very much important for us to note that. Now I want us to illustrate on these particular surfaces, the efficient features that we have talked about and how they were maintained. Now I have talked about the distance here, talked about the distance, and then the steep concentration gradient. I've mentioned how it has been maintained, the gas coming out and coming in, and then the alveoli here, like you can see, they are very many, they are very numerous. So their number here is to make sure that they have got that large surface area. So in terms of large surface area as a factor, if we can break it down, large surface area, how do we maintain it? I have said that number one, the alveoli are very many number. In fact, I told you prior that there are between 480 to 500 millions. Now these numbers make sure that we have got very large surface area for gaseous exchange, because when we have got these millions in an average adult human being, that one means that we can really fill this one with a lot of gases. In fact, if I can bring it down to a language that you can easily understand, we can therefore, if we talk about those packages, they are around 40 to 75 meters square. So this is the pack that the gas can be, we can talk about its occupy. In a simple sports language that we can understand, this is approximately 10 to 18 table tennis tables. If you have heard of table tennis, people who play table tennis, you know the surface area of table tennis. So you can imagine that in your chest you have got 10 to 18 tables of the playing tennis. That is how large that surface area is. So this is for efficient gaseous exchange. Unlike the athletes that really have got the features really adapting, they are a little bit larger. That's why we normally have got the range, because it is not standard in one human being. It's based on your feature, your body size, and what you are really involved in. The moment you are involved in activities, their sizes will expand so that they can meet your your demand. So this is how large our surface area is. So that is the thing that I want us to note at this particular point here. Now in terms of distance here, I have talked about the cells here, the membrane here. I think I don't want to repeat that. I have talked about the membrane of the capillary being one cell thin, and then the one of the alveoli is also one cell thin. So that one is to make sure that there's a short distance. And then inside the membrane here, we might be breathing in a gas that maybe a bacteria got in here, maybe a virus got in here. So what happens is that inside here we can be having the blood, the white blood cells here. So the white blood cells here can be helping us in actually breaking down any of the microorganisms that we might have taken in. If any case the numbers of the microorganisms come in more, we will get the infection. So that is one thing that we must really remember. So I want you to understand how this one is really effective for us in terms of breathing in. So the large surface area and the shorter distance there, I think it is well illustrated. So the next time I want us to see how the actual ventilation takes place. The actual ventilation takes place. So I want us to look at how we can effectively breathe in and breathe out. So breathing, actually we can refer to it as a ventilation. This is because it is actually freshening the air in the chest cavity. That is taking out the waste gas and then bringing in the oxygen, the gas that is really needed. So how do this particular process take place? Now this particular process takes place due to the change in the internal pressure or the volume of the chest cavity. Now this one is brought about by the activities of the rib muscles, that is the intercostal muscles, and also the diaphragm muscles. Now how do they really happen that we can really breathe in? Now I want you to know that the ribs here has got a lot of activities that will be facilitating the breathing in. In the previous lesson, we have seen that we have got on the ribs, in between them, the intercostal muscles, and there were two of them. The one that is found in the outer part was called external intercostal muscle. The one that is found in was the internal intercostal muscle. And then we also have got the diaphragm here. Those are the muscles that we are really keen on. In this pellet space, we have got the lungs itself. So the lungs can spread, the lungs can squeeze in. So how do we breathe in, for example? Now, when we are breathing in, what the chest is going to make sure that happen is that comparing the pressure of the gas outside and the one inside here, there must be difference. So the difference in the pressure is what is going to create the motion. So how do you create the pressure difference? Now, there is a little bit of physics here. That the external intercostal muscles, they can contract. So when they do that, what happens? They tend to pull the rib cage upward and then outward. That one, looking at that action, there is a space being created. And then the muscles of the diaphragm will also contract so that it can flatten as it's pulling it downward. So those motions is going to leave us with a very increased volume here, so that the lungs can actually expand on it to occupy that space. As it is doing that, the pressure of the gas that it's having will fall. So it's going to fall lower than the atmospheric pressure. So you can see in comparison, the atmospheric pressure is really higher than the one that is found in the chest cavity. So that one will just automatically make the gas to rush in, and therefore we'll have the oxygen here. From here, it can really be exchanged with the blood that is coming into the lungs at that particular time. So that is called inhalation. That is breathing in. So I want you to be really keen with what makes us to breathe in is the action of the two muscles, external intercostal muscle that is actually contracting, that is the behavior, and that contraction is actually pulling the ribs cage upward and outward. Then the behavior of the diaphragm muscle is also contraction. This is making it to pull it down, and then as it flattens, and therefore that act is actually increasing the volume, and then when the volume is increased, the pressure is lower. And which pressure is lower? The pressure of the gas that is found in the lungs here. So the pressure is low, and it is low in comparison to the atmospheric pressure. So the gas will rush in. That is the physics that I wanted you to understand there. Now that is breathing in. Now after some times we have to breathe out. Now how do you breathe out? Now you can even see how I've indicated the diagrams here. This looks small as compared to this. But now what has happened? Normally, when we are breathing in, the external intercostal muscles here, it will relax. The external intercostal muscle will relax. So as it is relaxing, there were two muscles there, the external and the internal. Now that one will make sure that the rib cage will fall under the gravity, it will fall. So when it is falling, it is also the internal intercostal muscle that is also going to help in pulling it down so that it can actually squeeze in. Now, when that one is squeezing in, the volume, you can see what's happened, the volume is being reduced. The diaphragm also will relax so that it can go back to its original dome shape. Now, those two motions will make sure that the volume of the chest cavity is decreased. And with the decrease in the volume, there is that blood pressure that is actually going to be increased than the atmospheric pressure. So actually the gas will just flow out through our nostril, through our mouth, and then we breathe out. So that is what normally happens in terms of breathing in and breathing out. Now this one is called exhalation. Now I want you to understand that the behavior of these particular muscles, their speed will be determined by the activity of our body. Like for example, when I am running, that one means that I'm having high demand. So the motion of these particular muscles will be so quick as compared to when I'm having a normal rest. Now sometimes the activity, it can be forced. I will say based on the activity that we are under. Like when I'm running, when I'm relaxed, the activity will be different. If any case, for example, the surface can be reduced and that one can be affecting us, we can force the breathing in. Like for example, I want you to imagine of somebody going for deep diving. What do this person really need? This person needs a lot of oxygen. So sometimes they can hold on the breathing. They can force it to happen in a way that they can hold much of oxygen when they are underwater, so that when they come out, they will be forcefully breathing in the gas, breathing out the gas that has been forced in. Suppose I have got something in my respiratory system, like I have got a lot of mucus. Remember, mucus can be produced. Now that one can be forcing the surface here to be low for gaseous exchange. What will happen there? I can force an outward motion by coughing. So why do I cough? I cough to remove the mucus, which I can remove through the nose or through the digestive system, so that whatever particle that they were having there can go and then be destroyed. So this is actually the moving in, this is actually the breathing in, the inhalation and the exhalation that I want us to know. So I also want you to know that the lungs here is actually protected. So what is really protecting the lungs is, there are two things. I have told you that prior that we can have the white blood cells that can be engulfing any pathogen that might be bacteria or the virus that might have gotten in. So they are always produced based on what is the level of pathogenic infection that we may be having. If any case there are many, we'll be having a lot of white blood cells being produced to fight them so that it can protect us. That is one thing that normally happens. So we only come infected if those pathogens, their numbers outweigh the number of the white blood cells that have been produced, like what we are having, the coronavirus now here. The moment it gets into us, they multiply quickly, the numbers become too much, and then they start affecting the alveoli as based on what are the number of white blood cells that we are producing to fight them. If any case we produce enough of the white blood cells, we will remain safe. So the infection here is based on the number of white blood cells that an individual can produce. That is why in any respiratory infection, different individuals will be having recovery difference in terms of how much their body immune system works. We have talked about the body immunity. So if I'm able to produce those phagocytic white blood cells, they can quickly reduce the number of the pathogen there, and then my recovery rate becomes very high. So that is one way and which we are protected. Number two, we have looked at it. If you are keen, you'll be realizing that we have been talking about the inner layer, like the goblet muscles cells being present on the trachea, on the bronchus. We have talked about the cilia. What is the work of this thing? Now, this particular mucus, the goblet cells, they produce the mucus. And the mucus is always in continuous motion. So as it is moving, it is carrying away, it is sweeping, it is carrying away with it any microorganism or dirt that might be there, and then it can be expelled out. Their motion is always facilitated by the cilia. So cilia has got that act of sweeping the mucus upwards to the nose, not downwards to the lungs itself. So these ones will be helping us to eliminate any pathogen, any microorganic, any dust particle that might have passed in our breathing system, and that one bring in the aspect of protecting our breathing system. So that is how our breathing system really work, and I want us to really understand. So clearly up to this moment here, when we are tasked with exams to really understand what happens at this point, I want you to remember the physics part of it that talks about the motion of the two muscles there, how they move, and their motion related with the volume that they are creating, and then bring in the pressure so that we can see the motion. And as you are bringing the pressure, make sure that we can clearly see the difference in the pressure in the chest and the pressure in the atmospheric pressure. That is what we are really trying to compare. There is no way you will tell me that the gas is rushing in if you don't appreciate that the pressure outside was high and the pressure inside is low. That is why there is that motion. And that one is created with the movement of these muscles. So you can see how we are going to connect them. There is no way you can explain it to me in exams and then convince me without comparing the pressure that it is actually the internal pressure that became high as compared to the atmospheric pressure. And that one comes in when the volumes here has changed, and the volume is changed due to the muscles that you have seen here. So learners, that is what I want you to understand in terms of the gaseous exchange in the mammalian system and how it is really modified so that it can help us in the gas exchange. So I want you to really be keen with those particular terms that you have talked about. If any case there is a question that you can, or a point that you need clarification in, you can still contact us, and then we will be able to make things very clear. Otherwise, thank you for today. Let us meet next time in the